Hello, my friends! Our assignment this week is a tale of adventure, and it's a little bit spooky. So what you are going to need to do is you're going to need to grab a Beat Buddy from your house. This is one from the music room, but just see if you have a stuffy somewhere along so that they can go on a Beat Buddy adventure with me. So grab family, grab friends, and let's sit together and listen to this great story. And later on, your Beat Buddies are going to help us tell it. A long time ago, there was a boy, and his name was Peter. He was about 8 years old, and he lived in Germany. He was sitting in the middle of the most boring wedding ever. The priest in the front was just saying things like love, blah, 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 and marriage, blah, 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 and no one would pay attention to him. He was so bored. He was sitting between his mom and his aunt, and he kept poking him, hey, mom, hey, mom, hey, mom, or hey, auntie, hey, auntie, hey, auntie, and no one would pay attention to him. There was an open window next to his pew, and he felt the beautiful breeze come in, and he saw beautiful red, orange, and gold leaves, and in the distance, he saw a big black mountain. And he told himself that if he ever got out of this wedding alive, that is where he would go. He would go and figure out what was going on at that mountain. He heaved a sigh. And then he had an idea. If no one's paying attention to me, why don't I just leave? So he tested it. He stood up, and nobody noticed. He scooted to the end of the pew, and nobody noticed. He stood up, and he walked to the back of the church and put his hands on the door. Nobody noticed. He opened the door as quietly as he could. Nobody noticed. He walked down the wooden, heavy stairs. He stood in the grass in front of the church and put his hands on his hips, waiting for his aunt to come out and say, Peter, you get back here this instant or I swear that I'll... But nobody noticed. He was free! Hooray! He ran and jumped into a big leaf pile. He was a little chilly. He wished that he'd remembered to grab a jacket when he was sneaking out. He popped his head out of the leaf pile, and he saw that big black mountain. And he remembered that what he said he was going to do was go there. So he got out, he brushed the leaves off his body, and he started to walk. The leaves crunched under his feet, the breeze blew his hair, and after about 2 miles, he got to the bottom of the mountain. And what do you think that he saw? A huge, black, empty cave. And as he stuck his head in, he felt a breeze coming from inside the cave, which is very unusual, and he wanted to figure out how that happened. So he stepped inside the cave, and he put his hands on the slimy walls, and he felt the breeze again. So he walked forward to try and find the back of the cave, which was proving to be very difficult because there was none. He walked up and down and up and down and around and around and up and down through tunnels until he saw a painted red door with a big brass doorknob the size of like somebody's head. Now Peter, like you I'm sure, has a little bit of mischief in his life. So he decided that instead of going away and telling somebody, that he would try and go inside. So he put his hand on the doorknob, he turned it, click, he opened it. Ooh, the sound sent chills down his spine, and he put his head outside, and he saw a huge room the size of the gym, with crystal chandeliers hanging from the ceiling, long, lacquered wooden tables, big, comfy red armchairs, and in the distance, a fireplace, which was great because he was freezing. He went up there, and he warmed his hands, and he turned around, and he warmed his backside, and then he went back and he warmed his hands again, and he was starting to get that feeling that you get after you come in from playing in the snow and you get warm and it feels like you're melting inside. And suddenly he felt someone tapping on his shoulder. He was frozen still. He didn't think anyone else was in here. He waited to see if it was just something that he was imagining. But it happened again. more insistently this time, and he heard a voice so deep that it rumbled in his body. "Who are you?" Peter turned around, and he saw a thing. It had 2 arms and 2 legs and 1 head, but it didn't look like any man that he had ever seen. It had green, warty skin, a big green nose that looked like a pickle. It had a shiny bald head, a gold crown, and brown, crooked teeth that when it opened its mouth to speak, the smell of rotten eggs and garbage came out. Peter took in the view with his mouth agape. The green thing looked at him again, folded his arms, and said, "I asked you a question. I am the king of this mountain, and I demand to know who you are." Peter cleared his throat. "Well, I'm Peter." "Well, Peter," said the king of the mountain, "there are no humans allowed here, so you have 2 choices. Either you can marry my daughter, or you can be trapped in a cage forever, suspended from the ceiling of this hall. What's your choice?" Well, Peter didn't want to be suspended in a cage from the ceiling of the hall forever, and he also didn't want to marry this guy's daughter. But Peter was a pretty good problem solver, and he thought that he could probably figure something out. So he said, "Well, I guess I'll marry your daughter." "Excellent choice," said the king of the mountain, and he took his big green hand and he snapped once. A door opened and a door shut. Peter heard click, clack, click, clack, click, clack, and he saw another human-looking thing, also with green, warty skin, only this one had a sharp, pointy nose, big, pink lips, scraggly blonde hair that looked like it hadn't been washed in like 15 years, and when it extended its hand like this, it had big, long, pink fingernails. It opened its mouth and it said, "Hi, I'm Oogalina. Nice to meet you. Oh, I heard we're getting married. Oh, I'm so excited. Well, I'm going to go get ready. See you later, Toots." And she walked away. As Peter was wiping the gross kiss off his cheek, the king of the mountain got this close to Peter's face and said, "Your wedding is in 1 hour. Be here or else." The king clapped his hands twice. 20 doors opened and 20 doors shut, and in filed in 20 troll guards, each bigger than the last, and they were at least 8 feet tall. Each of them had a huge, shiny spear and 1 huge shield. The king of the mountain left. Peter's original plan had been to escape when he left, but now that didn't look like it was an option. He walked around the middle of the room thinking and thinking, but nothing was happening, and he felt hopeless. Then he heard thud. And then he also heard thud. And then he heard that 18 more times. Thud, thud, thud. And then he looked around and he saw all 20 of the guards asleep on the floor. They were hugging their spears like teddy bears and using their shields like little blankies. And that is where our story really begins. Peter saw an opportunity to escape. So you're going to need to grab your beat buddy right now, because they're going to help Peter escape. Peter snuck to the big red door, and he turned the handle. He had it very quietly closed behind him, for real this time. And he walked onwards. No one would know that he was gone. No big deal. He had a whole hour, and it didn't take him that long to find this door. He would just walk. Uh-oh. Left or right? Left or right? Okay. Uh-oh. Wrong way. Oh, yeah, no big deal. I remember that rock and that big piece of moss. Do you hear that? Sounds like something metal scraping along the inside of the cave. I wonder what that could be. Sounds kind of like a spear. I wonder when the last time I heard or saw a spear was. Is it the troll guards? Do they have spears? Are they after me? Surely not. They're like getting coffee or they're out for a break. They're not after me. But just in case, I'll walk just a little bit faster, just in case. And suddenly, Peter heard somebody say, I see him! Ah! Run, Peter, run! They poke at him with the spears. Ow! They grab at him with their long claws. Oh, dead end! Ah! They breathe their hot breath down his neck when suddenly, earthquake! Earthquake! The mountain shakes and it's gonna fall down. It's an earthquake! Earthquake! The mountain shakes and it's gonna fall down. It's an earthquake! Earthquake! And Peter is shot out of the mountain. He flies through the air back towards the church, in through the open window, and he lands right between his mom and his aunt, and no one notices. The end.